All right, welcome to episode number 35 of the Stagger Tapes. This week on the Stagger Tapes, a guest of high demand for quite a long period of time as well. We've got Michael Pickens this week. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Obviously, over the last couple of weeks, you've probably had an increased amount of attention on yourself, given the nature of the retirement from midget post that you made. Some really cool names, obviously, giving you some really cool messages. What's it kind of been like over the past couple of weeks and having the opportunity? Obviously, you've known for a little while, but everyone else finding out and kind of having that support pouring in.
It's really humbling, to be honest with you. I've obviously raced midgets for a long time, 27 years, so it's not until you sort of stand back and look at what I've achieved and other people have achieved that have helped me as well, that you realise, what you've done. So it's really humbling and it's neat to see, the people reaching out and the fans that you've touched along the way. I've had so many messages of people saying, man, I've followed you for so many years, and my kids now have your T-shirts and da-da-da. So it's really quite cool.
It was cool. I was flicking through your page today, obviously, and we were picking up different bits of content that we'll kind of go through throughout the podcast. And I was looking, it's like 26,000 people liking the page. It's such a significant number for any kind of, when you look at in New Zealand, it's if you have like 5,000 people as a following, that's a huge achievement. Then the level of following that you have, and it's just every racetrack you go to, whether it's an open wheel racetrack, whether it's stock cars, whatever, you'll find a Michael Pickens shirt.
Yeah, it's cool, and we get a lot of support from overseas too, which is really cool. We can obviously see the stats on our Facebook page, and people from the UK, South Africa. We've got a lot of fans in America. I've raced so much in America and Australia now that we do have a small following, over there. So it's really quite cool.
I've got a little list of achievements here. It's obviously not everything, but I figured it would be worth going through. So we've got around 235 wins at 37 tracks, 10 New Zealand midget titles, 6 midget Grand Prix wins, 2 North Island midget wins, 9 50-lap wins, as in the international 50-lapper, but about 17 total 50-lap wins, including the Aussie ones, 1 New Zealand sprint car title, and 2 North Island sprint car titles. So, and that's, you look at that, majority of that is only the New Zealand career as well. And then we start touching on the international success, which we'll look at a little bit later on.
It's quite a resume.
Yeah, does it ever hit home, the kind of level that it got to? Obviously, you started the same way the rest of us start, and it's just youth racing, and then you take that step up to the next league, and then it's kind of got a little bit out of hand since then.
Yeah, I just love racing, and I tried to make it a career early on. And my ultimate goal is to make it to NASCAR, and that's another story. But I was just so damn determined to make it my career early on in my career that it was just, I lived and breathed it. I literally didn't think about anything else, and that's all I wanted to do. So when I realised it wasn't going to be a full-time professional career as such, I still love the sport, and it's just something I enjoy doing. It's not something I obviously have to do or anything like that. I just love the sport so much, and I get a lot of enjoyment out of it. So, and it's just winning is like I imagine it's like a drug. It's every time you win, it's like imagine a drug addict getting a shot in the arm. You just want more and more, and the team environment and all that stuff is really cool, and the people you work with along the way, and it's really quite neat.
And something I couldn't help but notice as I was flicking through your page today is how many donuts posts there are as well. And you got pretty good at those with the velocity that you'd pick up on some of them. It would get pretty out of hand.
Yeah, no, it was, I always remember as a young kid, we got the quarter midget picture up here, and around that time, I always remember Kerry Jones he was just such a badass, and the donuts he would used to do, and there'd be smoke billowing off the tires, and he'd get out and be sort of half dizzy, and I just thought that was so cool as a kid, and it's kind of I guess a way to thank the fans too afterwards. You're sort of doing something they don't otherwise see. And we've got some videos that have gone viral over them because it's just so unique. You don't see it too much overseas, I suppose. It's Some guys in California do it, but you really don't see it a whole lot. And the nights where it's just black, glassy slick, particularly at Western Springs, you used to be able to just let it eat, and you'd have smoke coming off the tyres. It was really cool,
I think because in the States they're really big on the Victory Lane celebrations and driving into Victory Lane, and so like you said, most of them don't do it. And then we kind of have like your traditional donuts here, where a few people will do them. And then when Kyle came and did the steering wheel out the side donuts, that was, man, the crowd fell in love with that one.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, we don't have to make weight like they do, literally straight after the race too. So, I mean, we're usually way overweight anyway, so burning fuel or rubber off your tyres is not a big issue. But that there, I didn't know where I was. I was just totally dizzy, and you could sort of see flashes of the wall, flashes of the infield, but you hope you don't knock anything over.
Is it easier in a sprint car because you got the more power?
Yeah, way easier. Yeah.
I think we saw, who was it? Was it Alec down in Christchurch, and he did about half a donut and then stalled it. So, yeah, it's a special skill.
Yeah, you got to pick your time in the midget. It's got to be super glassy, slick, and you got to have your RPM up and all that stuff. But the sprint car's a little bit more forgiving. But I do remember one time at Kiki, I did tip it over, but I just embraced it. I stood up on the wing and thought, I'm here now. I might as well just embrace it, and it's cool though.
Probably makes the crowd love it even more as well.
Yeah, it was like Rico after the Chili Bowl when he did the donuts and tipped it over as well.
Yeah, true.
Part of your announcement of your retirement from midget racing, you talked a little bit in a couple of interviews and in your posts about dodging bullets, and I thought kind of some of the things that we could talk about here as well as some of the bullets that you have dodged, as a few of them have been enormous crashes as well. And I think that's kind of just part of the game when it comes to midget racing as well. And I mean, a couple that I was thinking of looking back, you had two in the BSL days, and one was that New Zealand midget title with Jerry Coons, and Jerry was running the bottom and you were ripping around the top. I think Troy might be able to pull the video up here. And I think you had two really similar ones like that down in turn number 1 and 2, and really nasty ones.
Yeah, I remember that was actually the first night my now wife Dallas, actually saw me race, and she was sitting up in the corporate, I think it was, and she was literally looking at me at eye height from up in the corporate. And I flipped my dick off that night. And for whatever reason, that turn just always seemed to kick my ass. If I was going to crash, it was almost always going to be in 1 and 2. But that was a doozy, that one.
Yeah, I think we've got it.
Is it this one?
We might have it here. Oh no, this is the next one that I was going to talk about. So this was the one in the this was a B main, I think.
But wait, there's more.
And yeah. And I know you were pretty groggy after this one, and I think that chassis was still hanging up in BSL today. It's got the big arc and the upright, and I mean that was kind of part of what happened in Ruapuna just a couple of weeks ago with obviously this time a pole. However, in Ruapuna, the car hitting it, but just hitting that halo frame.
Yeah, unfortunately, I can walk you right through that one. But we actually had a battery terminal come off in one of our heat races, so we didn't make it straight into the A, so we had to run the B. And it was just a matter of circumstances, but HLR had to run one meeting to keep their number. So they put one of their crew guys in the car just to keep their number. And it was no one's fault, it's just a racing deal. But I went up the inside of him the previous lap, and he sort of heard me, so he thought, oh, he's going to do the same thing again. So he just ran straight off the end of the straightaway, thinking I was going to come at the inside, but I was on his right rear tyre. And it was just one of those deals, and I obviously got his right rear tyre, and that was right before we started putting the sort of 45-degree gussets at the top of the cage, because that hit that pole and it bent that tube like right down next to my helmet. I was just dead lucky it didn't get me in the helmet, but it was after that we started putting the 45-degree gussets in the cages. Yeah.
And then the last two that we have is probably two of the more legendary ones that you've had. One was the Adam Clark one in Sydney.
Yeah, that was...
So you and Adam, and that was, I mean, for a range of reasons, that was, for a spectator, awesome, obviously being teammates, number one, and how good the race was as well before that, and then you two coming together, and I think you got the tough end of it, as you ended up about sky high.
I think you both went pretty hard on that.
Yeah, went pretty high, right? That was a deal where obviously no wall, and you could run off the track. And I remember Clark, he slipped off right there and came back on, and we just come together. It was just a racing deal.
Yeah. Because that was racing for Brett with Seamount?
Correct, yeah. And Tony Elliott was in the blue number 1 that night.
Oh, shit.
How did Brett take it as well? Was the other thing I was wondering.
Oh, not good, but look, at the end of the day, like, we're all there to win. And if you weren't there to win, you wouldn't have been hired as a driver, you know. So it's a catch-22, you know. We're just going hell for leather. And unfortunately, we obviously come together, and that's the way it ended. I remember thinking I was so high. I remember just looking. We had used to have an oil pressure warning light on the dash. I remember just looking at that oil pressure light on halfway through the air, thinking, "Shit, I haven't hit anything yet." And it was just like it just felt like so much time in the air. It was crazy.
Yeah. Those ones are crazy. I heard you talking on the Rubber Down podcast as well this past week, and talking about how Parramatta was one of your favourite tracks as well. And you guys touched on the Aussie title there, and I mean the way it used to build a curb at the end of the night was awesome, and it just had that like perfect transition from start of the night being so fast and hot laps, and then end of the night being so technical. And when we were there for the that big Trans-Tasman thing that happened in 2019 or something like that, man, the curb that built that night was just ridiculous. Like, it was obviously here we don't really get them ever, almost, but especially not that big, and it was the first time I'd ever seen something like that.
Yeah, it's crazy. It was actually a really good track to go and race at before you went to America, because it was quite similar in that respect. It was obviously bigger, got a curb and bit of banking and all that. And like you say, there's nothing really here to simulate what you run in America. And that in particular was quite unique. It was actually most similar to Sunpuri, the old Sunpuri. Yep. You could just basically just go run off the end of the straightaway and fall above the cushion some nights. It was really cool. And there was a race with me and Kevin Sundell, and he was in Stephen Graham's, the blue Valvoline, or blue Graham racing car, whatever. And we were just, we're both four, he actually, he passed me 4 above, and I thought to myself, well, that's where I got to be. And I hadn't tried it all night until he passed me, and then I obviously followed him, and we would sort of get halfway through the turn and the car would get a bit squirrely or something, and you'd end up just shooting down off the cushion. And when you came off the cushion, it was sort of, it felt like maybe it was a foot high, and you'd actually jump, the whole car would jump and then land on the track, and then you're diving down underneath them, and then he'd do the same thing the next lap, and we just went back and forth. Felt like probably, I don't know, at least 20 laps like that, and until he actually he popped the left rear tyre off the rim, which gives you an idea of, you know, the condition of the track and what we're doing and what we're getting up to. But it was really, really cool, and it was actually wider back then, and it had more banking, so it lent itself a bit more to sort of running 4 above like that. And the Aussie title night, which was 2016, I think it was. That was another doozy. It wasn't 4 above, but you had to be just plugged in the cushion. But it was, at the same time, it wasn't moving at all, so you had to be reasonably precise with it. But cool place.
That was awesome. And there's one particular shot, and I think it's you try to slide Falca, I think, into 1, and as you're sliding up across, like, you can see the car like physically. As he clears you by like a hair as well, and like shoots around the outside of you, and like you can see the car physically like stand up on the rear wheels as you like light it up just to get to the curb and then get off. It just looks awesome, like the interaction with the tires just like blowing up for you to get into the curb, and then
cool.
Races on.
Yeah, you definitely had to have your wheel speed up before you got to it. Yeah,
no, that's awesome. You talked about something there about getting up over the cushion and turning down. I remember years ago, and it was at Western Springs into turn 1, and you had a bad night where you started relatively deep, and you created pretty much your own lane into 1 and got like up over the cushion and then turned down off it and made the back straightaway like 300 meters long.
Was that the New Zealand title run?
I don't know if it was. I thought it was an international race, but it could have been. But yeah, it was like nothing I'd ever seen before. And where I was going to go with that is, do you think that there's a benefit? Because obviously you said Kevin pretty much got up above you and just that kind of showed you the lane. Do you think that just that exposure to guys like that is so critical? Because I mean, the majority of the time, none of us would even consider that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And it sort of, I don't know if it was before, maybe it was before I went to Sunpuri, but at Sunpuri, and I'm talking quite a while ago, a long time before it got to where it is now. It used to race exactly the same, and you'd run forward by the cushion, and same thing. I still remember I got past one night, and an old mate was 4 above, and back then, you know, I was I don't know, maybe mid to late 20s, and you didn't give a shit back then. And I was like, oh, that's where I got to run, and you just you know, throw him over your shoulder and let her eat. And it was I remember the front vertical panel that is sort of, well, nowadays it's sort of in front of the radiator. Back then we used to have lay down radiators, and you have a vertical panel, and that was pushed so far back it hit the engine. And in C. Smith's cars, you ran the oil pump like as a belt drive off the side of the motor.
Yeah.
And the front pulley bore a hole in that panel. It was pushed back so far, and it was you could hardly steer at the end of the race because there's so much mud built up there. But it's really cool style of racing.
That's awesome. Something that I did want to start doing with this podcast as well was reaching out to people who are close to the guest and kind of get them to give you a little bit of a talk about who you are kind of as a person and as a driver. And I reached out to Dallas and got her to write just a little recap of a few things as well. So she wrote a cool piece. It's better than you think. So I'll just read through this and we'll talk about it afterwards. So she said, I first met Michael in 2010 at Western Springs, and I didn't have a huge interest in Speedway then. A few months later, he told me he was off to the Midwest of America to do a race that I wasn't familiar with called the Chili Bowl. I kept an eye on the results during the week and got to learn that he finished third in the main race. At the time, I remember thinking, oh man, that's a shame. I hope he does better next time.
I remember that.
It wasn't until I heard the announcers talking about it at the Springs a few weeks later that I realized that finishing third at the Chili Bowl A main was amazing and how talented Michael truly was. What I love about Michael is how humble he is. For as much as he's won from USAC to Powerai, Extreme Outlaws, Australian and New Zealand titles, beating the likes of Kyle Larson in 50 lappers, winning more races than any other New Zealander probably ever will, he could behave so differently. But he's a total class act. No social media rubbish, no mouthing off, no boasting, just a genuinely down-to-earth guy who can say everything he needs to by winning. Outside of racing, Michael's the definition of an all-rounder. He's very easygoing, shares my love of animals, is a DIY guru, loves classic cars, swimming, traveling, outdoor projects, cooking barbecue food, and is a great husband and dad. I'm beyond proud of what Michael's been able to achieve in his midget career, his determination and how hard he's worked, and how down to earth he's stayed throughout. So I thought that was...
Gosh, she's blowing some smoke up my ass.
Yeah, I thought that was incredible. Really cool. When it came through, cause as you send it off, you never know, you know. As a fan and a competitor, like I know you as Michael Pickens, the race car driver. I don't know you as anything else. And it was really cool to kind of see all of those cool little factors in there as well. What did you think hearing it?
And that's cool. It's nice to sort of disconnect from racing because particularly when I used to run the 2 cars, it was really full on, you know, not only during the week, but during the weekend, obviously racing. And it's pretty much every single weekend throughout the summer. So it's nice to sort of disconnect and have other interests to sort of, I guess, reset your brain and take your mind off things. So it's, I honestly enjoy mowing my lawns. People talk about hating having to mow their lawns and stuff, but I jump on my lawnmower and it's one of my favourite things to do. You know, it's cool, and we've got chickens and sheep and all that, and it's I love that part of how we live out in the country.
Did racing change for you when you became a dad?
Not really. I mean, people talk about it. You know, when you have kids, do you slow down or whatever? But not really. I think as soon as you think about, you know, the danger aspect of it or anything similar, then you're done. And it never really. I was probably raced wiser. You know, probably the last 5 or so years of my midget career, I was probably wiser than what I would have been as a younger driver. But it was more the experience rather than having kids.
And then the other question I had was, she talked about a little bit about the animal side of things. You had the Poor Justice helmets as well throughout your time. What was kind of the inspiration for that? Has it just always been a passion for animals, or?
Me and Brian sort of become friends when he came down to New Zealand, and I always remember he used to always support different charities, and I thought, you know, it's such a cool thing to do. You know, it doesn't cost you a cent. It's just a little bit of effort, and you can sort of you know, help people through it. And obviously, like Dallas said, we've got a love for animals, and our first one was actually for the Child Cancer Foundation, which was that sort of blue, grey and orange helmet I had. And then then we've done a couple of Poor Justice helmets since then, and I've raffled them off and just given them the proceeds, and it's just a cool thing to do.
That's cool. Well, we'll jump into the midget career a little bit here. So we go back to that initial startup time, and obviously we'll kind of jump over the youth side just a little bit. And obviously starting out the midget career family team, which was really cool. And you had the jump from, because you didn't do TQs at all, it was pretty much straight up into the midgets. So, and we don't really see that often these days. We were talking with Mitch Fabish last week, and he's one of the few, him and Alec Inslee, and there's a couple of others, but it's not the typical path these days. What was kind of your introduction to midgets like, and where did you go from there?
So it started, there was absolutely no plan. My dad's like me at that age, we're just not mechanically minded. So it started out as looking to get into mini sprints once I'd sort of outgrown the quarter midgets. And I remember we went around to look at a guy's mini sprint, Brett, I think his name was, and was sort of, you know, fairly well committed to maybe buying the car and getting into it or whatever. And we needed a trailer, so we ended up going around with Tony Cross at the time had a trailer for sale. And we went to look at the trailer, and we got talking, and he had that, it was a 1990 Canada chassis with a Cosworth, and we ended up getting talking and whatnot, and ended up buying the midget off him, and not the trailer, but that's how it all started, yeah. And that's the second year I ran that car, which then had a Foxco Ford in it.
And Slim Shady, eh?
Yeah. So that was, first ever feature on that one. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, well, that was the note that I have here. So March 2000, the first feature win that you had at 17. Yeah.
So that race, I remember I yard sailed the thing the week before, and we literally only just made it to the track within, like, I'm talking sort of within the hour type of thing. And I was at Clarkie's at Clark Performance in Glenfield, and I remember we were just absolutely thrashing, and I didn't really know what I was doing. I was only 17 or 18, I think, and I ended up going down to Repco, whatever it was, and getting just regular automotive power steer fluid in, and halfway through this, I don't know. It was a fair way into the race that just boiled the power steer fluid, and I had no power steering, and I still remember it to this day. It was just notchy. I'd get into the corner, and I just about lean my elbow on my middle, I suppose.
Just to lock it?
Yeah, and I'd just be like that through the corner, and luckily it wasn't rough or anything, and I just remember how absolutely buggered I was after this race. I'll never forget it.
When you look at the attitude of the cars and kind of how far technology's come kind of since that time, I mean, March 2000, so 26 years ago now, it's still got the general shape and they still behave similar, but man, it looks like a different class these days.
Yeah, that, like I say, that was a 1990 Canada, so it's
even older, yeah.
Yeah, a few years old. It was a super nice car in its day. Ray Easton built it, and it had seen a bit of action by the time I got to it, and I obviously gave it my own piece of action. But that Cosworth was definitely quite a ways down on power to what the other guys are running, and the reliability of it all, obviously.
Did you have a bit of trouble on entry to the midget class? Because obviously joining so young.
I had to get dispensation because I started when I was 15. And at that point, they wouldn't put you in features. The very first meeting I ran, I remember, well, they still do it now. You have to run off the back for the first 3 shows. But back then, they sort of had, I think it was actually like a C grade. They had the A, B, and then C grade.
Man.
And so I was off the back of the C grade heats, and we actually won both of them on my first night. And I still remember Willie Kay, he came up to me and said, "Do you learn anything?" And I didn't know how to take him at that point, and I said, "Oh, I think so." and he said, "Okay, that's cool. Well, you're not in the feature, but we'll see how you go next week," sort of thing. And I remember being kind of chuffed that we had won both heats, but also gutted that I couldn't run the feature. But it was probably a good thing, to be fair. I wasn't probably ready for that at that stage.
So when did you make that transition to kind of C-mount and with the first edition of C-mount?
So it's a long story. I won't bore you with the whole story, but long story short, my brother went to school with Nikki, which is Brett's daughter, eldest daughter, and she happened to be at that very first Western Springs race that I won the 2 heats off the back, and she went home and told Brett that, hey, this kid that I went to school with, his brother is going really well in the midgets and blah, 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 and that's sort of how it all started with C-mount, so it's quite a kind of a...
Didn't she used to race mini sprints?
That's Megan.
Oh, Megan.
Yeah, so this is Nikki, who's I don't know how old she'd be, but she was probably 4 or 5 years older than me, I suppose.
Man, what an awesome reference, eh? To get that taken home to Brett and then get the eyes on you.
Yeah, so you can see C-mount Enterprises on that left side,
Yeah.
left and right side of that stage. And then the second year, which was the Blue K you saw before when I won my first feature, for whatever reason, we just sort of, everything went a bit quiet and Brett backed away. And then he went all out after that. He actually bought the engine off my dad right after that feature win. Maybe that got him jazzed up a little bit, I don't know. But from then on out, it was funny enough, actually, that my third season, I hardly did any laps at all because we had engine issues, and that's what really gave Brett sort of the bug, I guess, to have really, really good gear, because we literally sat on the sidelines for almost my entire third season, and that's when he bought, the white number 9 car and the black 32 fight cars and all that. So that's sort of how it all started.
What a cool connection as well, the way that you kind of later on end up rejoining with Fike as well, quite a ways down the way. But
yeah,
and we'll talk about that as well. The success that you had with C-mount, even in that initial phase, obviously once things got going, and the caliber of people within your team as well, the drivers that they had within your team, he kind of brought in just about the best of the best when he used to bring drivers down to run in New Zealand. And then obviously, as we saw before with you and Adam as well, did a little bit of racing in Australia as well.
Yeah, I mean, people are everything, and it's not only like the drivers, like you say, but I had Kevin Payne, his brother Gary Payne, Tim Clark, Steve Morris. We had the who's who around us, and back then Kaz was, God, I don't know, he must have been in his really early 20s, maybe even teens at that point. So I had really, really good people around me, and then obviously Bryce, as he had just come up from TQs, and he was the absolute man to beat in TQs, and so I sort of learned a lot off Bryce initially, of racecraft and bits and pieces, and then bringing down Dave Darlin and Tony Elliott and those guys, it really fast-forwarded my career, I guess, when I look back at it now.
It really is elite company. And I think something that Kaz talked about was he was saying that he thinks that a significant portion of your kind of sped-up career and the significance of your career was through that support as well, and having such a significant backing from Brett.
Yeah, definitely. He gave me the best of the best gear, and always did, and the best of the best people too. So yeah, it was, and then it was just up to me to gas it up, I guess. But yeah, like I said before, people are everything, and always fortunate to have really good people around me.
And we talked about donuts a little bit earlier. Some of the best donuts I think we've ever seen was that first New Zealand title at Western Springs. I mean, they were unbelievable. And I mean, the video footage is terrible quality, but the speed of the donuts is ridiculous.
Yeah, that was, I still remember that like it was yesterday.
How was that race for you? Obviously, the start of what turns out to be 10 New Zealand midget titles. It was, how many years into your career was that? And that was obviously tied in with the C-mount team.
Yeah, so that was 2003 season. And to be honest, I kind of struggled a bit up to, I won a feature in my dad's car in my second season. And then, like I say, the third season I set out. And then might have been my fourth season, I think, was at that DeWalt car. And like I say, I kind of struggled a bit and didn't really know where I was at. I guess I just didn't understand it. And I was with Gary Payne at the time, and then his brother Kevin KP came along, and I guess they decided to switch crew chiefs up. And me and KP are real similar in personality, and we just clicked instantly. And then it was almost just like bang, I was away, and it was just a real. I'm still good friends with him today, and we just clicked, and that was sort of my first big race. And after that, I was sort of obviously got the confidence, and I was away.
Yeah, that belief that you can do it is usually quite a significant jump to the career.
Yeah, for sure.
So that yellow DeWalt car, that was one of obviously the most legendary cars within kind of speedway history. Everyone remembers that car. One of the cool cars that I remember as well, I might be jumping forward just a little bit, is the Seamount Special, the black and gold 4.
Yeah, funny enough, I got both of those cars.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That was such a cool car, man. I remember it when they took the car down for when they used to do the Southern 50?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
We won both 50 lappers that year.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that thing was an absolute hot rod. It was the last car I drove for Brett for that era, I suppose. Obviously, I drove from later, but for that era, that was the last car. And we did like a limited schedule, but it won almost every race, I think. And I vividly remember the 30-lap World Derby. We're going good through the heats or whatever during the night, and I'm strapped in the car, and as usual Timmy's making his last minute changes. And I looked at Tim and I said, "Hey, so I got no brakes." And he's like, "What?" "I got no brakes to go into the floor. We used to have a push down pedal back then." And he said, "You got anything?" And I'm like, "I got nothing." And he's like, "Oh well." So yeah,
all the best.
And I ran the entire race. We led almost every single lap with no brakes. Ended up second to Dave Darlin. But that, other than that race, like I say, we won the 250 lappers. I'm sure we won a New Zealand title, which might have been at Christchurch, I think, that year. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, really, really cool car. And just, I remember they had the gold leaf lettering, which I think was painted by Brent Holden. And I think it was clear coated over the gold leaf. Like, it was just all the decals and everything had a clear coat over them. Like, it was just absolutely beautiful.
You said you've got that car. Is it in like restored condition or?
No, it was actually. What happened is we sold it to Brendan Palmer in Australia, and he was coming here for the international series as an international driver for Australia. And he had a massive crash at Parramatta and bent the chassis. So they bought it here as a bent chassis, and they put a brand new chassis in the car when they got here. So it stayed at BSL. So I got the chassis off Bill, and then got some body panels off, original body panels off Brendan, that's all I'm up to at that stage. And then the DeWalt car I've got, which was Melios in Christchurch, bought it. That's the car that Dick Webb drove. So they owned it for all those years, and it sat up and right. And I tried to buy it for probably 10 years off Emilius, and finally got it, but they're not restored yet. One day.
That's the plan.
That's the plan. Yeah.
It's cool driving through on the way to Mount Smart, kind of through Penrose, and you see the GVI car and at Sanyong there as well. Yeah, that's awesome, man.
He's actually got. Oh, you're talking about the midget in the showroom?
Yeah, the one that's in the showroom. Yeah, it's awesome. It's so cool driving past every time. The kind of next phase that I've got written down there as well as one of the, again, iconic cars, and I think this is pretty much the trend throughout your career as well, is the Little Rippers 54. So the Don K one. I saw a little interview as well where you said that the 54 actually came from Don, and you said it was his age or something along those lines, and then you've stuck with it.
Yeah, that's how old he was when he started. There he is standing right behind me. Matt is a cut snake. He's such all those guys are such legends, and I can't believe anyone would start racing midgets at 54. It's crazy. And that was actually the blue number 1 Tony Elliott car, which was an absolute hot rod in its day. I'm not sure if I think that That might be the car there actually, and and that just stuck. I had some success with Don obviously, and I just decided to keep that number. Yeah,
such an iconic car there as well. The yellow left side and the Little Rippers. I remember that era was when and probably just before it as well, was when the midgets really started to look alive. Like the cars started really dancing a lot more than they kind of used to. I've watched a lot of the old footage, of course, from back in the day, and there was that phase where they really started getting active, and like the midgets that we know today, I guess. Something that we were going to look at as well, and we talked a little bit beforehand, is your time in Roush as well. So it's about 2005. So I think we're somewhere in the right timeline there. Yeah. Was that before or after the Don K time?
I want to say it was before.
Okay. Yep. So we had a little bit of time where you got the opportunity, and Troy's going to bring up some footage here as well, and you had the opportunity to go and do some tarmac stuff. So not a massive amount, and earned yourself a development contract throughout the program that he had going on there. Do you want to talk a little bit through kind of what even brought that opportunity about, and then where did it go from there?
Yeah, so I won a race at Sampuri, which we were talking about earlier, and to win a race back at Sampuri in its heyday was a big deal. It was really hard to win on a Sunday night there, and anywho, I won, and there was a Kiwi guy by the name of Tony Price who worked for Roush for 20-something, maybe 25 odd years. And he reached out and he said, hey, we sort of just got in contact, and it led into, hey, I might be able to get you tested in a Craftsman truck with this gong show coming up. And we first tested at a place called North Wilkesboro, and that was my first ever time on pavement. And did okay. And then the following year was actually the gong show, which we went to Martinsville first and then on to Darlington after that.
Jeez, who's that handsome fella?
Still look exactly the same too. It's aged pretty good.
Thanks.
Man, what was the experience like? Because obviously you were there focused on the test and the whole situation there, but it's kind of hard to ignore the concept of that it's a Discovery Channel show, and the whole environment probably reflects that as well.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. I mean, God, I was so out of my depth. I'm not a pavement guy, never raced a car like that. And I still remember at North Wilkesboro, my very first time in the car, they used to run a Jericho gearbox, and I remember saying to the guys, where's reverse in this thing? And they looked at me like I was just crazy, like, Jesus Christ, who is this kid, Because all the other drivers have been like an ASA late model, or which is like a pavement late model, or something similar, so they've got similar sort of gearboxes. And here's me not even knowing where reverse was.
We didn't really have the accessibility as you do these days as well. There's so much study that you can do before you go and experience almost anything. Like if you want to go and race somewhere you've never raced, there's onboard footage, or there's a million videos that you can watch online. What kind of preparation did you do for this? Because obviously you can't really understate how important this would have felt for you as well.
Yeah, it was crazy. Roush, Jack himself, actually helped with getting a school car to Darlington, just because I was literally the only one that had no pavement experience, and he probably didn't want a truck torn up, of course. So I went around Darlington in a school car, but they're so far removed from an actual proper racetrack like that is. But yeah, I remember one of the craziest things at Darlington. So that was the last track, and they'd already cut half the drivers from the previous Martinsville test. And they stuck us in a room, which you sort of see if they pan around, but there's these little, almost like big portacom type rooms, and they had the windows all blacked out. They're sitting in one now. And so we couldn't see anything, but we could hear what was going on. And when we first got there, Ricky Craven and Carl Edwards shook the trucks down, which they look like they're doing now, maybe, I don't know. But we could hear them, and they'd go flat into turn one and no lifting at all. And we're talking before we started filming today that they used to run an IROC tyre, which had super high tyre degradation, so the tyre would fall off, its grip level would decrease so rapidly, and the track was super abrasive back then. So you'd hear them start to lift out of the throttle only after probably 4 or 5 laps. So when it went out into the truck, for my first laps, I thought, well, shit, I know I can hold it flat. And it was, I don't know what you're doing, maybe 160, 170 mile an hour, something like that. But I remember that's the most petrified I've ever been in a race car. It was crazy.
What a cool, this whole show looks awesome. For anyone who's listening and not watching, we've got Greg Biffle here, Carl Edwards, within the kind of class that you're doing this, I was going to call it an experiment, but this thing with, also Justin Allgaier in there as well. So there's a ton of really big names involved in this project. Did you get to kind of meet and interact with any of, with Greg or with Justin and all the rest?
Yeah, I actually became good friends with Carl Edwards at that point because he was driving the 99 truck for Roush, and he obviously went on to become, super successful cup driver, and he was just a super down-to-earth rooster, and I remember there was articles, back then they had Speed Sport News, I think it was, and there was just a newspaper that all the race teams, cup teams, whatever, in North Carolina and around the place would have on a Monday morning. And he used to always put an ad in there, and he always used to have his business card, and he'd be he's the most perfect self-promoting type driver you'd ever meet in your life. He was, and he basically made it from nothing. Absolutely, I think his family might have owned a Silver Crown car, but that was about it. And so he sort of, I guess, felt that I was in a similar boat. I was in America with no money, literally the shirt on my back, and so he sort of took me under his wing a little bit. And we became good friends, and it was kind of cool.
When was the first time that you went over for speedway racing?
So 2003, the year I won my first title, I went to sort of just help Tony Elliott, and then the following year must have been my first year racing, I think.
Okay, and so it was a year after that.
Oh, I was just going to say, Tony Elliott was so awesome back in the day, man. As a kid, I looked up to him.
Oh, he was awesome.
And then when he just came and he had that American personality, and it was just awesome.
He was really cool, yeah.
And then obviously heading over this experience here, what kind of came of it? Where did it go? And did it just kind of fall off, or was there any kind of opportunity leading forward from there?
So I did get a Ford deal out of it, but it sounds great, but really they didn't want to invest in a guy that wasn't proven on pavement. So I got some tests with Bob East in a Ford Focus midget, and I think Curb Records helped me out a little bit with the odd pavement stock car drive here and there, but without sort of that guaranteed experience, they weren't willing to take the risk, which is, hey, at the end of the day, that's life. But so just really unfortunate that I hadn't had that experience, because who knows.
Yeah, it's so tough with that stuff as well. We've seen how, especially these days, it's becoming more and more about how much money you have, as well as we see a lot of guys in NASCAR and in the different leagues in NASCAR who kind of only arrive there through the bank account. So there's not that many who kind of make it on pure talent anymore. It's such a different league. Jumping forward, I think we jumped forward a little bit here as well, but I thought it's important to kind of highlight that BSL era that you had as well. Where did the start come from with that partnership between you and Bill? And you obviously had some good success with that, and we've got a few stories in there as well.
Yeah. God, it's going back. So we ran the breakers with the RSI Slingers, and like you say, had an awesome run. Bill always gave us the absolute best of the best equipment. We never needed for anything. And then we went to America. I don't know, it was at least once. It might have been a couple of times we went to America.
I remember you went once with the World Series stuff down the side.
Yeah, that was with Brad as my teammate. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And Bill was great to drive for. Obviously a lot of opportunity traveling around the place. We won a ton of races together. It was awesome.
Was there because that period, it was quite funny when I was looking through the kind of history and the timeline that you're at. In my memory, you were with Bill for a lot longer than you actually were. It wasn't actually kind of as long of a period than I thought it was.
Yeah, we had the sort of that dark matte blue number one. That was America. That was at Sun Prairie, actually, that shot. We won that night. It was pretty cool. We had sort of matte dark blue number 1, and then I also ran the car that Kyle Larson ran. So that was the first year he ever came to New Zealand, was when we had the blue number 1, because he ran that black 99 car.
Yeah.
And
I think he swept that series, didn't he?
I think he did, yeah. He kicked my ass. It was pretty cool, you know. Like he was. I knew before then how good he was. That's that sort of dark blue car. But yeah, man, to see him and that early on in his career and how good he was pretty cool. Yeah.
Did you? I mean, you mentioned you knew how good he was. What was he like obviously you kind of became friends with him in a later stage as well. What was he like as a kid? Because I think he was about 17 or something, wasn't he? Or maybe even
somewhere
around that age period. Yeah.
It was really weird because I've always kind of not had to be, but I've always wanted to be quite involved mechanically in the car, understand it, and I've always worked on my own car and stuff, and it just blew me away how little he knew. And it's not through any fault of his own, it's just that particularly with him, he was so good that he got dragged from every which direction to race different cars, so he could never really probably be in anything long enough to understand it. And he honestly wouldn't have a clue what stagger, offset, bars, springs, anything. He wouldn't have a clue, but he just drove the absolute shit out of it. And maybe that's why he did drive it so hard, because he just didn't know. But yeah, that always blew me away.
It was an interesting time as well, because he came down, and I think he was just, the amount of RPM that he used during the races was like nothing as well. Like he'd sail past and it sounded like he was just cruising at like quarter throttle and just seemed in such control at all times. It was just ridiculous for someone so young, you know?
Yeah, he had he's got quite a few knacks, but the one in particular was he's able to run the car on the absolute ragged edge without crashing. And obviously he crashes from time to time, but I remember one night in particular, it was so damn rough, and he crashed every lap. I'm looking up ahead, and I'm like, oh, this has surely got to be it. Nah. And then next lap, oh, this has got to be it. Nah. It's just incredible how close he came without wrecking. It was just a real talent he had, I guess.
I remember the one thing I remember from that time is he had this real weird thing. He was like, I'm not going to wash my helmet till someone beats me. And so he had a dirty helmet throughout the whole series.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I don't remember that.
It's so random. I remember as a kid, I was like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. One of my top Guptill moments is when you beat him at the in the runoff.
Oh, the pole shot. Yeah, it's my claim to fame. Yeah, 2 laps of glory.
Yeah, badass.
I remember I was waiting in line for hot chips, and I was just watching it on the big screen. It's like, Guptill, what are you up to?
Where's the respect, man? Just go to the chip stand when you see me roll out onto the track. Troy had the photo up just before that, the red and black car. So that was actually the time that you actually jumped out of the BSL stable and connected with Harley Taylor.
Yeah, so we ran...
and that was when the Toyotas that was one of the first ones that came here, wasn't it?
Yeah, so that was a Staten Toyota, that one. And that... Actually, it's not that particular motor. It was a different time. That was actually later on, but very early on with Harley, we had a Staten Toyota, which was owned by Jason Bell out of Australia. And that's the motor we used to win the title. And then Harley actually bought the motor that is in that photo, yeah.
That was quite a good connection between you two. It was there because I think people forget, and I think I spoke about it with Kaz maybe, but even Keith and stuff were Esslinger forever, and then they made that transition over and almost gave up on the Toyota, and then it ended up working out. We just never saw one for the longest time. And then one came down, and then now obviously there's quite a number of them down here. What was the thing for you? You've obviously driven about every engine package there is on planet Earth. So what was it for you when you got into the Toyota that you knew it was money?
They're just easy to drive is probably the best way to describe it. They're not, like on a dyno, they're probably not as big a hitter as some engines you'd see. Like an Esslinger would potentially make more power, but not as much torque, whereas a Chev-headed motor might make more torque, but not as much power. So, but the Toyota had a sort of the best of both worlds, and they're so smooth, they almost felt dull to drive, but that made it easy, you know, it was easy to hook the tyre up. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of guys sort of tend to jump in them and think, oh, I need more gear set, but you don't necessarily need it because you're creating speed with the motor just being so smooth and almost sort of doughy, I guess is probably the best way to describe it.
Because we won't talk about it yet, but when you connected with Justin, you had a year where you went, I think Bill lended you a RSI in the blue car. You had like 1 year when you came back to the Esslinger. Yeah. And that's, man, watching the driving style change to kind of manage the different motor as well was so crazy. I think I was racing at that time, but even watching as like a spectator was like, because for the longest time, even when you were with BSL, like you were wide open and you were awesome to watch, like massive lock and wheels up, and it was like super exciting, and that was just how you had to drive them for that period there.
Yeah, I mean, I probably grabbed it by the scruff and just wrung its neck. Yeah. I remember one night we had it was super rough, and the engine sort of fell forward because as it landed on its nose, it fell forward, and that number 4 HT lead slid down in between the rocket cover and the engine plate. So when the engine sort of came back up in its resting position, it had squashed the HT lead and it dropped the cylinder. And we were just so frustrated at that point because we had a lot of issues, not necessarily because of the motor, but just other issues around it, ignition and bits and pieces. And I just run the shit out of it on 3 cylinders. We actually won that night. and I thought, oh, bloody motor, another Esslinger or whatever, and got out and we're servicing the car during the week, and we're like, oh, that's why it dropped the cylinder, you know. So nothing to do with the motor at all. But it's definitely a different driving style. Yeah, when I got into the semi car with the Toyota and all that, I mean, it kind of felt like you're just rolling around at 80% a lot of the time. But that's part of where you get your speed, because you just, I know it's hard to explain, but you're just hitting your marks. And obviously we with the C-Mark car and that, we had Justin was head and shoulders above everyone else where his program was, and you probably didn't have to drive it hard to be fast. You went over, sticking on engines, you went over to Australia, I think it might have been when I was still racing as well, and ran one of the earlier BB7s, and actually gave quite a decent review about that as well, and said it was pretty decent, because I remember how different the RSI felt to the BB7, especially the later BB7s as well. They felt like significantly easier to drive, like what you talked about, how the RSI was sometimes almost felt like a light switch, like it would be really hard to get off the bottom, and then once you were going, it was up there. Yeah, we mucked around, God, for so long with different camshafts, getting them to drive in a certain way or whatever. But yeah, the BB7 that Graham Jones has out of Perth, he did sort of some of his own stuff too, and they were always really super, super good, and we won a bunch of races over there. And if a motor's going to shine, it's going to be at Perth. It's so big around there, and definitely shined around there.
Around that time where you were with Harley Taylor, it kind of started the era of the like legendary duels between you and Brian as well. And you two had some incredible races through that time period. And then he kind of he was one of those guys similar to Kyle, where we thought he wouldn't keep coming back, just with how good he was. Often they come and then they go.
Sure.
And he kept coming back, and every year you two would just go to war every year.
Yeah, it was, and we're good friends throughout that whole period too, which is kind of cool. But I remember one year he came down, and it's right when Justin's cars really started to hit their stride, and he won every single race. And they went to Australia and won every single race. I'll never forget that. I was so just envious of their package. I'm thinking, God damn, how can they be so fast, you know? So, and he's just such a humble, cool guy. And one thing I always respected about Brian was he was so methodical. You know, he would always hit his marks. And I remember Dallas sitting with his widow, I guess, at some prairie, and he crashed, and she was really, really distressed and worried. And Dallas, I think maybe Dallas said, "Oh, have you not seen him crash before?" or something like that. And she said, no, that's the first time I've ever seen him crash. And that was years and years and years of racing, like week in, week out, you know. So it gives you an idea of how methodical and precise he was as a driver. It was really impressive.
I thought it was incredible the way that he didn't have to lean on anything. Like, he could generate grip the way that no one else could. Like, he could just float the middle and generate grip, or he had the ability to kind of turn it on to be a little bit more wild as well. But it was always just like you said, it was always just perfect.
Yeah, he did a hell of a job. And Justin's cars at that point, like I say, they started to hit their stride. And when I started driving them, I started to realise I could sort of do the same things. And after watching Brian, the way he raced, taught me a bit about how they work too, I think. And I don't know, at that point when he was kicking our ass, I tried to follow him, and it's just no way in the world. You know, it just pissed me off. But he was a good job.
And you actually got to be teammates with him as well at with Rusty at the Chili Bowl. Yeah, that would have been pretty cool as well.
Yeah, no, it was super special to see him on Chili Bowl, and great group of guys.
You shortly after that, you did make your move to Justin and kind of connect with King Chassis. I remember really clearly talking with Brad Mosen, and he said that when he found out that you and Justin had gotten together, he was like, "Oh no!" Like he was like his reflection. He was like, "It's all over," basically. You guys had unbelievable program together, and you have had over the past, how many years? It's probably been over 10 years now.
Yeah, it would be, if not 10, close to, yeah. I don't know, we similar with KP and Tim Clark, you know, we just instantly clicked. And we don't really, we're both super quiet people, and we don't really talk to each other that much, to be honest, during the night. He pretty much knows before I've said anything which way we need to head. You know, I'll start to say something, and he's like, "Oh yeah, no, I've already," you know, and so I'll just shut up. And obviously that was at Gas City. That was the first USAC feature we won.
Yeah,
and
Justin did say, he was like, "There's a little bit of a story behind the cigars as well."
Yeah, we stopped at a gas station over there, and one of the boys bought them, and we joked, you know, we'll light one of these bad boys up if we win a race, you know. And then we won. We're getting sick of bloody cigars after that week. it was really, honestly, like, before we went, if you had said we were going to have the results we did, I'd say just absolutely no way in the world. So it was pretty special.
I mean, during that week, so that was 2017, and that was, you won Illinois Midget Week. So that used to be, those 2 weeks were kind of connected. There's always like a Power Eye week, and then it would lead on to the USAC week, and you were just untouchable at the Illinois week. I think, did you win with Spencer?
I remember that the very last race we were leading on points, and then we got fenced by Logan Seavey, which is another funny story. But we got fenced by Logan Seavey, but we had enough points to win that deal. I couldn't tell you if we were tied with Spencer or not, but I definitely remember we won Para Midget Week, yeah. Only just.
And such an awesome car as well. So that was, we may as well jump to there as well. So linking up with Seamount, and that season was one of the greatest seasons that we've seen kind of in New Zealand midget history. Is there was 17 wins across 3 countries basically, and I mean the win percentage would have been outrageous that year.
Yeah, it was crazy, you know, but like I said before, you know, Justin's cars a few years before that had started to hit their stride, which is why I sort of tracked him down and started wanting to run his cars. And that particular year, we ran, you know, a bit of CSI shocks with a bit of factory cane stuff, but man, the cars were just so good and super easy to drive and super stable. I mean, honestly, most of the time it felt like you didn't really have to drive them too hard. When you're in America like that, I guess you are driving them as hard as you possibly can, but at the same time, you're still super stable, super comfy, and like I say, just with as a crew chief and a driver, we obviously just clicked.
And there's that photo there from Lincoln Park as well. And Justin also said, ask him about the hot laps at Lincoln Park and the lack of hot laps at Lincoln Park.
Yeah, so the previous photo you saw before smoking a cigar was the night before at Gas City, which was our first USAC win. And so we rolled into Lincoln Park, old chest puffed out, and we were like King Dick, we got, not that we're going to go win again, but we're pretty confident, we had a good night the previous night. And pushed off for hot laps. And honestly, of all the years I've ever run Toyota, I've never, ever had a single ignition problem, not a bad HT lead, core pack, ignition box, spark plug, nothing. Pushed off for hot laps and was down a cylinder. And I'm like, shit, there's our night done. And it pretty much usually is your night done. Because with that USAC format, you get 3 or 4 hot laps and you're literally straight in the chute, back in the chute for time trials in your order. And I pushed off, had a cylinder go down, and pushed back in the pits. And we didn't have time to diagnose it. And I had to stay in the car. So the boys ripped everything off the car: the ignition box, battery, core pack, leads, plugs, everything, and just put everything brand new on it. And went out there and set quick time. Yes, and we won that night. And it was just one of those, another just barn burner race. We were getting into turn 1, I sort of found this line where I could run 4 above and then sort of cut down. And then, the last couple of laps I sort of made a mistake getting into turn 1 and got a bit sort of too far rotated. And then Spencer got back around me, and then we sort of swapped positions a couple of times before the check. That's probably one of the coolest nights of my career. It's just one of those nights that, started off so bad, and a race I'll never forget.
And you said earlier that you could like grab it by the scruff of its neck and get after it, and there was one of those nights like that. And I think that's probably one of the characteristics that as a fan and a competitor we associate with you the most as well, is that when you need to, you've got that switch or that different level. And I think that's one of those, one of the many things that makes you on a different level. And even watching those last couple of laps, I don't know, are you able to find them? They were in your video that you put together as well, the 2 from Lincoln Park. But you make it sound incredibly easy as well. You just drive in above the fluff and turn down and then just sail out. But you even when you watch the video, you're wheeling it, wheeling the shit out of it, basically.
Yeah, it's quite funny, there's certain nights I remember, I sort of chuckle to myself because there's one particular international night, and it was, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and something happened in the heat where he had to stop and go to the back. And I was just plain pissed off and just drove the shit out of the thing. And I remember coming to the pits, and Justin and the boys, they don't normally say too much for me because I'm normally running 2 cars anyway, so I don't have much time to sort of interact. And I remember them sort of looking at each other, and I just overheard one of them saying, "Yeah, no, we're on tonight, boys." So I was just pissed off, and I guess sometimes it does, I guess, push you up another notch. When you're buried like that and you've got to get yourself out of it, and then from that point on you think, oh well, that works, I'll just keep going, so it's kind of cool.
It's hard, it can be hard to channel that energy all the time as well. It's especially in speedway, it can get especially here, it can get quite routine where it's it's a weekly thing, so it's this is my Saturday, and it's you kind of go through that routine. It's really easy to get complacent, I think. And I think being able to kind of meet that level, 2014, is this?
It's qualifying.
This might be in the fight car though.
Yeah.
So this will be the wrong year.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, no, that's all good. But yeah, that's being able to kind of take it to that different level. Because in New Zealand, we have this unique factor where we don't get hot laps or qualifying as well. Obviously, qualifying is critical there, but you've had about 4 to 6 kind of hot laps, maybe only 4, but you get that opportunity to kind of warm up in a sense, right? You get that chance to interact with the track and the car and get yourself going. If you're not on, you have the chance to kind of get on. In New Zealand, it's straight into a heat race. If you're rusty or not switched on or anything like that, it's you get quite punished.
No, it's definitely a different style of racing, which is sort of why I adapted to the Power Ride format so well, because they don't time trial as such. They just have one heat and you've got to qualify through your heat. So as a most New Zealanders that go up there tend to run a bit better with the Power style format. Yeah.
One of the cool things down the side of that car as well that you did take to the States was you had quite a significant input from members of the public and certain businesses and things like that to actually get that whole deal over to the States. So what was kind of the mindset behind that? Like, I know you guys just came off, as I mentioned before, this incredible year with a massive win percentage. You've got a ton of momentum. Was it just the we've got to do this now type thing?
Yeah, I mean, back then, obviously we had that awesome season in New Zealand. We took the car to Australia and it won every race over there that we entered. And then Bryce Townsend was doing his tours, and he was just sort of at me like, Pickens, you got to take this into America. You got to do it. And I was sitting at the airport, and I remember talking to a couple of people, and we came up with this idea of sort of fundraising to try and offset some of the costs. It was a huge deal to take a car up there. We air freighted it up there. That was flights, accommodation, all the rest of it was a massive expense. And yes, I mean it just sort of started from there, and we got so much support. And looking back at it, it never felt like pressure to win, but we actually had a lot of people, riding on our shoulders to at least have a good, shot up there. But it was really, really quite cool, the amount of people that got in behind us.
Bryce with those tours as well. I think there's quite a cool photo of one of the nights that you won as well, and there were all the people. Like, there was a ton of Kiwis there as well in support. I mean, that would have been cool as well, because I imagine quite a lot of the time when you go over, you're the only New Zealander within 1,000 miles.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was really cool, and he did such an awesome job of his tours, and to have the support of some locals in your corner was really quite special. And I remember he used to put he used to put the odd one in the pace truck and that sort of thing. So it was really quite cool for those people on the tour too.
On the topic of America, you had some really cool opportunities, and I think you've run with almost all of those kind of elite teams as well. We obviously saw just a little bit ago, Troy brought it up, one of the legendary cars from my childhood with the fight cars. And when you linked up with those guys to run for, I think, did you do a whole USAC season or the majority of? Yeah, a whole USAC season in the fight stuff. I mean, that was so cool for me, 2014. It's such an awesome looking race car as well, like just the carbon outlook and the DRC. Really cool. Was it DRC with the big hood as well?
Yeah, that was a DRC.
Yeah, such a cool thing. What was that like for you, kind of making that link? So it's not that one. No. Yeah, and making that link to the Fikes and having that experience of a full USAC season. Yeah,
so I was at Chili Bowl, and I don't know if I was actually in the 63 car you were talking about earlier with Brian Clausen, but started talking at Chili Bowl, and obviously put a deal together to run that whole USAC deal. And Chris Wyndham was my teammate, so they ran two cars. And to be honest, we really struggled through most of the season with what that was the very first SR11. So we had motors, development motors given to us, and had a lot of problems. And the cars themselves, would always be quite good early in the night. Would always qualify decent, run through the heats okay, and then I'd always just get run down in the features almost every time. So it was, to be honest, quite a frustrating year. And one probably I don't look back on too fondly, but to be honest, it's good character building, and it teaches you how to I guess extract every last little bit out of your car, because when you jump into something that's really good, you're lights out, because you've just had to drive so damn hard, to get where you are, because either the motor was struggling or the car was going off or whatever. You just look back at it as one of those experiences. That was one of the last cars of the really cool
I say really cool. It was my favorite era of looking car, like with the one-piece bonnet and things like that as well. Yeah, you never get that anymore. A lot of the cars look extremely similar these days.
Yeah, it was no design on it either. It was literally just a gold leaf number 3 and some logos. Yeah, which is kind of cool.
And the blue nameplate as well to give it a little bit of colour.
Yeah,
awesome. You did have an experience with Keith Coons as well.
Yeah, well, I've obviously known Keith for a long time and raced against his cars for a long time, and it was all, we were both obviously I wanted to drive for him at certain points, and he always said he wanted me to run his car at some point, and it's kind of a long story, but the car I was in for this particular midget week, we really were struggling, and it's the first time I think I've ever quit on a team. I got to the point, and it was an amicable split, and I said to the guy, I said, listen, I'm going to end up tearing your stuff up because we just cannot figure this out, and I'm just having to overdrive. And he realised that, and luckily at the time I had Kevin Thomas Jr. was my teammate, and he was struggling worse than I was. So anyway, I ended up quitting, and I was, hey, look, thanks very much, but I've just, got to do my thing. And so Keith heard, and one of his guys said, hey, give Keith a call. And the very next night, it was the last race of the USAT Midget Week, which was at Kokomo. And we nearly won. We set quick time, I think, and led, I don't know, maybe 2/3 of the race or so. And Dason Pursley passed us for the win, and we ended up second. But it was quite a good character building trip, that one, because you just almost start thinking to yourself, man, am I not doing something right here? Am I not pushing hard enough? But luckily, like I said, I had a good teammate to reference off. But your equipment and the people around you, like I said earlier, people are everything, and you have to have a good car, otherwise, especially there. I mean, it's and prove that.
Do you have a specific feel that you're looking for? Obviously, you've driven so much stuff and to so many different pieces of equipment and to different crew chiefs and everything like that. Do you have a feel that you're looking for? Because when we were talking to Kaz, he was saying that kind of the approach at Keith's is like, this is our window, basically, of what we believe the car goes good in. And then obviously they can cater a little bit here and there, but that's the window that they believe in.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't ever really, with the cars I've run locally here, obviously you can change things around. But to be honest with you, I mean, if the thing doesn't tip over and you're fast, I honestly don't care. and with Keith's cars, the very first time we went out hot laps, I don't know, we're near the top somewhere. And I was like, I came in and he said, how do you feel? And I said, I'm maxed out on right rear grip. I said, I feel like I'm on a nice edge. And he said, okay, cool. And then I knew it wasn't going to fall over. I just respected, their judgment. And so just, you drive the shit out of it. But you just have to, if it's fast and you trust it's not going to fall over, then you just drive the hell out of it, But as far as an individual feel, probably running the sprint car has made me not want to be as laid over as what I would otherwise, I guess. But that's probably just due to running the sprint car. But yeah, when you go and run for different people, you really just don't have time to get to that certain feel. You just got to jump in and go.
One of the other cool cars that you've won in the States in was the Polar Ice 29 car.
Yep.
As well, and so that's another one of those quite iconic looking cars with the it's almost like a baby blue, like a very light blue there. So what are the stories kind of in behind there? Because I think you got a win early days in that one in the States as well.
Yeah, we won at Kokomo, funny enough, and that was with Tim Clark, and that was a Brecker chassis. That's a Spike behind me there, but that was with a Brecker chassis that we won with at Kokomo. That's the car. Remember, Brad said he had that monster crash at Parramatta. That's the car right behind me. And Yeah, that was pretty cool. You know, Jack was, and Brad would say the same thing. You know, me and Brad actually ran as teammates for Jack for a little while, and Jack was just such a cool old cat. He was all he wanted to do was win. He didn't care what it cost. He just wanted to win races and obviously have fun, but it was about winning. And but he's very cool about it. You know, he didn't really put any pressure on you as a driver. He just wanted to win.
If you search as well, Troy, on YouTube, the like Michael Pickens Kokomo win, there's a video there as well of the win that you were talking about as well. When you look at the tracks back in those days as well, we kind of saw it a little bit on the weekend just past with the high limit race at Kokomo. But often Kokomo these days is a little different. Back then, there was always this nasty curb and a pretty awesome bottom as well. Yeah, it's that one above, down one. Yep, that's the one. And so this, I mean, I was looking at this earlier, and Brad was saying before, a lot of the Kiwis actually tend to go pretty good at Kokomo as well.
Yeah, that's probably one of my favourite tracks, and it races really, really good, whether it's a wing car, midget, or whatever. But yeah, there's some cool in-car footage of this exact race, and we had RSI Essling. It was on the boards the entire race. Like, I don't think I lifted for one lap, and the poor thing was just, you could hear it on the limiter halfway down the straightaway. It was just got its absolute neck wrung.
Man, it's such an awesome layout, the way that you can, I think you talked about it in an interview saying you can race almost 4 or 5 wide at times. Yep. And you've got someone coming from the fence in 3 running that like Kokomo diamond that they talk about, where you can just turn down and make this front straightaway super long.
Yeah, that's a cool place, all right.
It's awesome. And I mean, getting a curb like this, it must be satisfying as well for, like we said earlier, coming from New Zealand where you don't really get the opportunity. I mean, it's such running on a curb like this is just, it must be something completely different.
Yeah, different to what, you know, so you grow up used to at Western Springs or you know, any other tracks around the country. So it's it takes you a little while to you know, you definitely just don't go there and start winning, because it's the style of racing is quite different.
Also in the States, you've had a chance to run the Rodella 25 as well.
Yeah, that was Jerome has actually become a good friend, and the very first time I drove for him, it was actually a Breca car that when I was working at BSL, we sold him, and we went to Calistoga, which is a big flat half mile. And I remember people just laughing at us because he had the whole entire car shrink wrapped, and went out for wheel pack because he didn't want to get any mud on it. And the car was, I mean, it was absolutely beautiful car. Like, everything was handcrafted or polished, whatever, carbon fibre, this and that. And anyway, we ran like shit that night, but I'll never forget the shrink wrap. Yeah, but he became a good friend. He actually came down to New Zealand and helped with the Harley Taylor car for a few nights. So it was really good. He's probably, you can see the headers he makes and all that. He's really, really talented fabricator.
And these days he's done a few different things as well. Like, he had that plexiglass on the left-hand side. He's done quite a few different things, but I mean, extremely well known, as you said, for just how beautiful the car is. Like, it's always just premium in terms of the presentation side of things.
Yeah, something like Bondio a little bit.
Yeah,
it takes quite a lot of pride in the.
He actually used to work for Bondio, so there you go.
Makes sense.
There you go, little link. The other one that we had that I wanted to talk about as well was your opportunity to run with the Swindells.
Yeah, that was obviously a bit of a childhood dream, I suppose, and that was the year after. It might have been 2 or 3 years after Kevin had his accident, and they hadn't run the car since. So it was the first time the car had been on track since his accident. So they're all, you know, a little bit emotional about it, I suppose, but really, really humbling experience to be able to run the Black 39, because it won, I think, 5 Chili Bowls, and 3 of them were in a row, I think. Maybe 4 of them were in a row.
Yeah,
so
Kevin went on a streak, eh?
Yeah, it was incredible. And I mean, we ran okay, but not great, to be honest. I just wasn't that comfy in the car, but pretty neat to say you've run the Black 39 Chili Bowl.
What was it like to drive? Because obviously everything's a little bit different at Chili Bowl as well, the way that you have to set the car up to actually run that type of a racetrack. But the Swindell stuff in particular always looked a little bit different to everything else.
Yeah, to be honest, the biggest problem I had is I just wasn't comfy in the car. So in those earlier spikes, which that was, the A-frame's quite a ways forward, and so I'm sort of hunched up over the steering wheel, and I could never really get to where I was super comfy. So straight away, you're not in an ideal situation, and you just deal with it. But the car drove good. It's hard at Chili Bowl because it's a different car, different motor, different crew chief, different track, and you got no time. You literally have to just jump in and go. And it's no excuse, it's just how it is. It's quite different when you're jumping in a car that you're somewhat familiar with, like when we've taken, the Synergy V8s up and that sort of thing, you're somewhat familiar with how it operates. But that was like, I made a few mistakes and put us, on the back foot a little bit here and there. But all in all, it was a pretty cool experience.
They're pretty, the history that they've got there is pretty unbelievable. So being a part of that would be quite cool. And the podium that you have there as well was you kind of tucked in behind both of them and extremely close to actually getting the job done as well.
Yeah, that night we, Chili Bowl's changed a lot since then, but we started, I can't remember exactly, but we were maybe midfieldish, somewhere around there, and drove up to, I think it was 4th, and then a guy just half spun. We went to the back, drove back up again, and then passed Sammy for 2nd, and just as the caution come out, so I had to go back to 3rd, and then he knew I was there, so he just sort of slid himself. Obviously Kevin's leading, and so he sort of just slid himself a little bit, and we only had maybe 2 laps to go, I think, so there's no chance to really bomb him or anything. But that's pretty, and that's the race you're referring to, Dallas, thinking, it's a shame he only ran 3rd. And at that point, I was damn near in tears after the race. I was like, man, this is just so cool. We almost had a shot at winning Chili Bowl, and I remember Dallas telling Lethal, her dad, he only ran 3rd or something, and Lethal was like, you got no idea what that means. It's pretty cool.
It must have been a cool experience, like the magnitude of it. Obviously, over 300 cars, and then at that stage it was over 300, and then the pretty much like as soon as it's race over, it's like media swamp. And then you've got like the press conference, and then obviously all the celebrations and everything as well. Must have been a cool time, and with the Loyettes as well, which is really cool as well.
Yeah, that was wild. Tim Clark was helping me. He was crew chief on my car with the Loyettes when we ran 3rd. And funny story, he got food poisoning real bad that morning, so the Saturday morning, and luckily I wasn't having breakfast with him that morning. But he went missing, and because when you lock into the A, you don't really race until about maybe 7 o'clock, which is just like the locked in cars hot lap session. So we're just chilling out, not really doing much, killing time. And I'm thinking, where the hell's Timmy? No one could find him, and he was outside in the cold, like death warmed up. And Haley had to take him back to the hotel, and he was really, really bad. And I'm thinking, oh man, this is like the worst case scenario of all nights. And he came in like literally right before the A-main was going to push off. I'm talking like minutes before the A-main was going to push off, and he was just like green, like he was bad. And he did his normal thing at last second, like give that a turn, this a turn or whatever, and sent her on his way. And I'll never forget that night, because I'm just so focused on Saturday night, and then all of a sudden a crew chief's nowhere to be found. I'm like, oh shit. So yeah, it was wild.
You guys have a really cool relationship in terms of, and to think of the success that you've had with both Justin and Tim, as you've had success in both New Zealand and America. And have you won any races with Tim and Aussie as well?
Yeah, with Jack Berry.
Man, that's so cool. Like when you think of, those are probably the two elite crew chiefs that we've had over the past kind of 15, 20 years, and to have the amount of success that you've had with both of them is really neat.
Yeah, they crew chief is I've always said it's really important, and it's not even so much what they're doing with the cars, which is obvious, but it gives the driver a lot of confidence. And Tim was always very, very good at that, and I see him doing it with Brad too, because I just know exactly how he operates and how he is. And I quite often see him leaning in the car at the last second and giving Brad a pep talk. I know exactly what he's saying, and he was always very good at that as a young guy. I distinctly remember saying, "He'd be like, he'd say to me, just attack, don't drive defensive, attack." And he'd say to you things like, "You're the best guy here. Don't give a fuck about the rest of them. You're the best guy here. Just attack like that." And he'd really pump you up before the race. And I always remember that. So as a young guy, it was quite cool as a confidence booster. And when I got to driving with Justin, I was already at a level where I could win races, and I was confident. And so we didn't really have to say too much. It'd be the fist pump or something, and just send her on her way. But Tim, as a young guy, giving a driver confidence was
like a boxing coach.
Yeah.
So
it was quite funny. Walking past, that just made me think of another thing. I was walking past when Ryan Baker drove Shane's car for the first time.
Yeah.
And when he had the opportunity to run for Shane during that time, and I was walking past the car in the pits, and they were doing something. I was like, what the fuck is that written on the dash? And it's like this massive layer of tape, like this block like this, and it just says, "Oh, just drive like you don't give a fuck."
Yeah. I can imagine he wrote that. Yeah. I think he ran really good the very first night. I remember. Yeah,
he was awesome. Like he had a rough time with crashes and stuff, but with how fast he was so quickly, it was really impressive.
I think he ran like 6 or something his first ever night.
Yeah, and then 2NZ debut. Yeah, pretty impressive.
Yeah.
You kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier as well with the touch on sprint car racing. Now the sprint car was an interesting choice. Like, it was one that kind of surprised a lot of people in Speedway, just given how successful you were in midgets. Often, like, no one had really done it at that stage in New Zealand. Why did you make that choice? I think initially you guys kind of had like a lease deal with Allard, was it? Or something along those lines, and then you went out and did everything properly?
Yeah, so I was running BSL at the time, and Jonathan was working out of sort of like the race shop area, and we sort of got talking, and I actually ran a sprint car years prior, only a couple of times for Jared Ness, Monster out of Christchurch. I won my very first race actually down at Bay Park, and I only ran it maybe a couple of times, and then he ended up selling the car, and then years later, I sort of always wanted to do it again. And so anyway, long story short, Jonathan said, "Look, you can use my roller," and then Warwick McKenzie ended up buying a motor to put in that car, and we ran, I don't know, a handful of races at the end of that season, and then Warwick bought that roller off of Jonathan's car and Kevin McGreal at the time, and that so the following season was where the Century Battery stuff and all that sort of started. Yeah.
And then it didn't kind of start off as hot as you would have liked as well. A lot of something that we all noticed was a lot of bicycles in the sprint car. Yeah. You don't tend to see sprint cars bicycle that much.
Yeah, we did struggle like that. You're dead right, and it was a big knock to my confidence, because you're like, man, the last thing you want to do is rail the thing in there even harder, because you feel like in a midget, if you're on that sort of teetering on that edge of bicycling, the harder you run it, the worse it's going to get. Whereas a sprint car, it's the opposite. If you think you're going to bike up, you just rail the thing in there harder, and it's going to wing down harder, and it's going to be safer. So it took me a while to get my head around that, and once I got going, I was fine. But it was definitely a knock to the confidence. But you've just, I don't know, you get through it and come out the other side and better for it, I suppose.
Was it because I imagine at the stage that you were at there, you'd been racing midgets for probably a good close to 20 years almost, or probably getting close to 20 years, you've got these real firm non-wing habits that are inset, and you can run a midget almost as hard as you want on autopilot at that stage. It's just part of the routine. Did you find that kind of the inner voice came back a little bit when you were running the sprint car? Like you had to remind yourself, like you said, you have to stay in the throttle as you wing in, or anything like that? Just a little bit more kind of mentally active as it was happening?
Yeah, I remember talking to Brian Clausen about it. He wasn't a wing guy. He started in non-wing sprint cars and always ran them and ran midgets. And later on in his career, he started running wing cars, and dragging the brake is something all wing guys just seem to naturally do. And I remember him telling me he never used to drag the brake, but he should. But it was just a non-wing habit he had. And I'm still bad for it, I suppose. I probably don't drag as much brake as I should. So little things like that, take a bit of getting used to. But to be honest, ever since I started running the wing car, I was always better in the midget. When I went back, I started running the midget straighter and probably, I want to say harder, but definitely straighter than what I would have before. So, and back then, if you remember, Western Springs was super abrasive on tyres. So that, I felt that really helped, looking after the rotary tyre and that sort of thing. But the speed obviously wasn't, if you had to run the heck out of the midget, speed was never an issue. It just felt slow. So it felt like, I guess the best way to describe it is going like, 100 Ks down the motorway in your car and then slowing down to 50 K zone. And it feels like you've got 10 times more speed to do everything. So you're looking ahead more and you're thinking about your mind's processing things quicker because everything feels slower. So I think in that respect, and although it took me a while to get my head around the sprint car, it helped me in the midget.
And then you mentioned earlier that you and Justin had like a really good relationship as well, and to the point where he was almost finishing your ideas when you were giving feedback. Do you think that was a critical thing for that time where you were you started getting things figured out in the sprint car as well, because you're jumping between the cars so much throughout the night?
Yeah, definitely. I had to. You'd be screwed without good people, but we sort of, he understood what I wanted, and he could just look at the car and be like, before I even opened my mouth, he'd pretty much answer my question. So in that respect, we really didn't communicate have to communicate too much. The car was always it was always close enough.
And then where did the relationship with you and Steve Warrington come from?
So Jonathan knew of Stephen, of Steve-O from Ron Salter days, and Steve had retired from working with Ron Salter, which was, he used to get Delansky and Saldana and those guys down to drive for him. And I desperately needed help because I had no idea what to do with a sprint car. And Jonathan said, "Hey, give this guy a call." And Steve-O thought he retired, but not so much.
Signed up for another another decade, just about.
Yeah, and one of his conditions was, he said, "Hey, listen, one thing I have to be able to involve my son Hayden, and with what I'm doing, if that's okay." And I said, "Absolutely. I don't no skin off my nose, and he was 9 years old, I think, at the time, and it's quite ironic because now he's he could crew chief the car if Steve wasn't there,
He's
and
right there now. Eh?
Yeah, and so and some nights, like in Christchurch with Jock Goodyear, I mean, Hayden was crew chief, and so it's kind of a funny situation to look back on. It's, hey, is it okay if I involve my family? And I said, absolutely, more the merrier. But he's actually his son Hayden's turned into one of one of my best guys.
Was he, because obviously starting that young, was he always like engaged and involved in terms of the discussion, or do you think that kind of came through almost osmosis being around Steve so much, or where did that come from? Because Hayden's, like you said, he's so involved in these high performing teams now. He's doing a really good job.
Yeah, no, he was always, he was knee-high to a grasshopper, so he's always sort of standing next to or behind Steve as we were talking. So and Steve lives and breathes sprint car racing, so at home, I guess, they're always talking about it, so or watching it. So it was, he just, things like, running the top or running the bottom, or, diming the corner, whatever was natural for Hato, because he was always around it, always listening to it. So I think just over a period of time, listening to me and Steve-O make adjustments throughout the night or whatever, it was just become natural for him.
And it must be pretty neat seeing the level that he's gone to now and actually pursuing those opportunities too, and seeing him spend time in the States, seeing him spend time in Aussie, and really kind of establish himself in that scene as well.
Yeah, no, it's really cool, and we've become really good friends, and see him over in America and thrown in the deep end as such, and it's awesome to see him living out his dream.
Something that you talked about there was the idea of like him involving his family. I always thought that when we were at the track, like there were always a lot of people around the car, but it was like it looked like everyone was comfortable in that space, which was really neat, because I've been around places where you walk into a pit bay and people are kind of awkwardly on the side, or they're kind of half and half there, or you can see that they don't feel completely comfortable. But whenever anyone who's wearing CRC stuff or Michael Pickens merch and stuff, they're right in there and feeling kind of, they look comfortable.
Another thing, they always help out as well. Like I've always noticed your crew will go help out in the driver if something happens and you got time. I've noticed that quite often.
Yeah, like I keep saying, people are everything, and you got to surround yourself with good people, no matter what you do, whether it's business or whatever. And I've always been fortunate enough to have the right people around me, and their families have always been more than welcome to hang out in the pits and whatever. So it's just it all comes down to people. And one thing, sort of toward the last, I guess, 7 or 8 years, one thing I've always said is we have to enjoy it. You got to have fun. If you're not having fun, it's too much time away from your family, too much money to not enjoy it. So we always have fun. Obviously, serious about winning, that comes first, but we've got to have fun at the same time.
In the last few years, you've also kind of expanded your sprint car program, doing a little bit of Australia racing as well. You were mentioning on the Rubber Down podcast about how you enjoy a little bit more wing speed as well at a lot of the places over there, because we get a little bit here, but it's not to the extent that you have over there. What's your kind of experience been with the idea of dirty air? And another question I have is it, do you ever notice anything about dirty air here, or is it? I know it's minimal if it is anything, but does it exist on small tracks?
I don't feel it, not on a sort of flat quarter mile, and it's quite cool, to be honest. When I first went to Perth, it was like learning how to drive a sprint car all over again. It was that wildly different, and the style of racing becomes totally different too, because the way you pass is different, because I guess you slide the car a lot more here in New Zealand because it's flatter and slower and you've got less downforce. So when you make a pass at a high-speed place, you will kind of just turn the car down and just drive it straight to the top rather than sliding to the top, I guess. So it's a style of racing, and it's also the way you drive the car is way different. And obviously, like you said, the dirty air, all those little things, and the style of wing you run, and the shape, the amount of dish, and the offset of the sideboards, all that kind of thing starts making a huge difference. Whereas here, it doesn't really make massive changes to the car.
You see, it's really interesting the way that the different drivers in New Zealand kind of use their wings. You see, like some people like Jamie Larson, often extremely flat wing, and it's obviously the grip's coming from like a more mechanical side of things as opposed to the wing speed. You guys, I find, are often a lot more aggressive with the wing than the way you go about that. What do you think the impact is? Like, if we have less wing speed here, what's the kind of thought process between that massive difference between like a flat wing like Jamie and then kind of you guys who are a little bit more aggressive?
Yeah, I mean, I guess our way of thinking is you've got minimal airspeed, and you've got to make the most of every last little bit of wing you have. So whether it be the wicker bill at the back, or how the fore and aft of the wing, offset of the wing, all that kind of stuff, where you've got your front wing. So every little bit you can capitalise on, you got to make the most of.
What's our rule on the wicker bill?
There is none.
That's crazy, yeah, because there's some enormous ones that you see. The Stagger Tapes is proud to be partnered with System Decal. System Decal have all your design needs, from race car designs, race day graphics, posters, and more. Get in touch with Josh at System Decal either on Facebook or systemdecal@gmail.com. System Decal. Stand out everywhere. We're kind of towards the back end of all the stuff that I've had planned. One of the things that I did wonder is if you have to think through the career that you've had, what are those kind of, if you had to pick like a top 3 in terms of like highlight memories, what kind of springs to mind?
That win at Putnamville would be a highlight for sure. There's been so many. It's really quite cool to think back on. But another real special night, obviously the first New Zealand title in the midget's cool and all that. But one night in particular, I remember I was in Don Kay's car. I can't remember the Essling or no, it must have been the Ed Pink Ford because it was early Don Kay days, and we broke a rocker arm in the Ed Pink Ford. And so one of the boys went back to the Seamart shop to get another rocker arm, which obviously we didn't have at the track. And I jumped into, I think it was Dave Jick's car that night to qualify for the feature where he had an old Fontana in it and qualified for the race. We had to start off the back, I'm pretty sure, in our own car once we had the rocker arm put back in it. And start off the back and got the lead off Shane Alec with 2 laps to go, I think it was. So that was a pretty special night, because it wasn't just what I did in the car, but it was all the people around me, and which was really special.
Do you think that Putnamville win was just the way that it happened? Because I'm sure in a race like that, like there's got to be so many emotions with how important the event is, I guess, in the scheme of the event itself as like a USAC Midget Week win, and then the scheme of the whole week, and especially coming off the win at Gas City as well. Like, you guys are already here, you've hit the lead, and then Spencer gets you back. It must have been like up and down in terms of inside the car.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, even the night before at Gas City, we qualified, I think we might have been on the 3rd row, and you get docked, I think it's 2 rows to being late to the dummy grid, and we got docked 2 rows, and at that point you're thinking, shit, there's qualifying all down the drain, and then we ended up winning, so it was, but that once again, that sort of that, I was pissed off, I was angry, and I was just up in the seat, and so they're probably a blessing in disguise, to be fair, but so those nights are super special, and the people you've got helping you, make it even more special. That was we were just the little fellas from New Zealand that no one cared about at the beginning of the week, and all of a sudden we're winning races. So those are definitely memories I'll cherish forever. And I remember driving back to the shop after the races, and we were in this borrowed old hack Silverado with a little cargo trailer on the back, and we had stopped to buy fireworks. We were letting off fireworks out the window and having a couple of celebratory drinks and just having a hell of a time. So it's if he got pulled over, God knows what would have happened. But a really, really cool memories to look back on.
Della sent through a few story options we could ask you about as well. She's got in regards to that I-55 one, I think, were you with Dolby that week?
Yeah.
Yeah, she said when you won that race, ask him what it was like in the days leading up to that race and how you got the ride that you won in.
Yes, that's quite a story. I got a phone call from a guy and to come and drive his car, and I didn't know him from a bar of soap. He didn't really know me, but I ended up going up there, and he was. I don't know how much I want to say here, but
yeah, that's all right.
It was. He was definitely under the influence, and and Hato and Stevo were with me, and our eyes were just wide open. He said, we'll be at the track at this time. We're at the track, and we're running where the hell he is. And he was, I don't know, he's at least an sort of hour and a half, maybe 2 hours late. And we're just thinking, what sort of operation is this, And I still had to fit my seat, and I ended up just running his seat. I just ran out of time to fit my own seat, so I should just leave that seat in there. And long story short, and we actually nearly won that night. That was at Jacksonville. And long story short, we ended up at the last race I ran from. It was at the BC 39 at Indianapolis Motor Speedway on the dirt track there. And luckily the motor blew up, and I had actually leading up to that very last night. I'll go back a little bit. We were waiting for them at the track, and the trailer's locked up, and we had like maintenance and all this stuff to do, and the trailer's just locked, and we're thinking, what is going on? And all these other guys are opening the trailers, backing their cars out, and they're all looking at us. Every sort of couple of minutes, you'll see that one's there out the back of the trailer. Is he there yet? You know, and we just felt like absolute dicks. You know, I'm standing there with my gear bag, the trailer door locked. Like, who else has got a car? And the Dave Mack guys walked past us. This is after it was still locked for half an hour, I suppose. And I jokingly said to Cannon, I said, "Hey, you got a spare car? I might need it tonight." Well, he after that, like I said, the motor blew up that night, thank God. And then Cannon at the time had an issue with tyre doping and couldn't run the I-55 race with Extreme. And Ricky Stenhouse Jr. was driving for them at IMS, so they put me in Ricky's car, and we should have won the first night. We ran second or third, I think, and then the second night we won. So that was that was an absolute eye-opener. I mean, I could go into a lot more detail, but it was a situation you don't want to be in. And when you get back around great people and good equipment and everything, it really makes you appreciate it.
There's probably so many of those guys over there that are like that, like those team owners or like car owners that are just out the gate.
And you see it at the Chili Bowl, right? Like when there's just an opportunity to come and race at a time that no one else is racing, you get all sorts of cats come out and bring their equipment that's been sitting in the shed for 15, 20 years. And
a lot of people don't realise, what goes into winning races. And I've just been brought up around the right people to understand it, but a lot of people don't. And the way you look after the car, maintenance and all that stuff during the week is everything, So, and a lot of the people at Chili Bowl, they drag her out of the shed, because that's maybe the only race they run, So they drag her out of the shed, and things run on 3 cylinders or whatever, and they probably shouldn't be there.
I couldn't believe the amount of people who will drag like pretty poor condition cars, and they'll run terribly, and then you look under the hood and it's got like a Toyota under the hood. And it's just like, man, the amount of guys here who would just kill for something like that. Yeah. It's just, there's levels to the game, eh?
Actually, to add to that I-55 story, a guy I've known for a long time. You remember the waterheater.com, the grey plastic box water heaters? So Wendell Dickerman, we become good friends. His son was just a real hard case. And I remember him saying, "Hey, I'm going to... if you win at I-55, I'm going to get my balls out." I don't really think too much of it. Well, anyway, it's there's a photo on Facebook or somewhere, and he gets himself into the victory lane shot. He runs over the track, gets himself some victory lane shot. So he's amongst all the Dave Mack guys and all that, and we're all just like in the moment. And I look back, and he's got his plastic pair of balls hanging out the bottom of his shorts. God, it was a hard case.
That's awesome. I mean, I'm pretty sure you won that on the last corner, right?
I think it was, yeah.
Drove around the outside of someone at I-55.
Yeah.
What is I-55 like? Because it looks like a battle ring in the sprint cars, but it looks like it looks quite big for the midget.
Yeah, it's pretty much how it is. Yeah, it's not that I run a sprint car around there, but the sprint cars race a lot different to the midgets race, and it's probably similar size. It feels like similar size to Perth, I suppose, but it is big for a midget. Yeah. And it's a long way around the top, especially if the bottom's okay, so they tend to sometimes end up around the bottom because it's maybe gets dirty at the top or whatever. But I mean, back then, I think we actually still hold the track record there because it happened to be just heavy that night we were qualifying. But it puts on a pretty good show.
And one of the other stories that Dallas mentioned that I should ask you about was what's your most memorable drive home from Bay Park?
Oh yeah. So, well, thank God we won that night. So I got a habit of running out of gas, and so we're at Matamata, and I kind of looked at my gas gauge, and I thought, we'll be good, and got on there. And I didn't really think at the time. We were all just chit chatting and bullshitting in the car, and it didn't really occur to me that the next gas station was probably Bombay's, And we're driving along, and I started to think about then really where the next gas station was, and I'm thinking, shit, it really is the Bombay's, and I'm probably not going to make it. And I'm just looking at the trip meter coming down because of the towing. It's going down pretty quick.
Yeah.
And there's the golf course there that you pass. Coming home, it's on your left.
Yeah. Maramura.
Yeah.
Yep.
So coming up there, and we're getting 10, 9, it starts to jump almost in 2s and 3s, And anyway, I knew it was 0, and we're done. And I'd run out of gas before, so I knew in my car 0 meant 0, and I didn't want to run it dry out of diesel, so I just pulled over the side of the road just after that golf course, and we flagged down Brett Junior Morris's truck, which Mike Pipes, who's now one of our crew guys, was driving. And so we're rummaging through so we need some diesel, so we're rummaging through our trailer, and we pulled a fuel line. I think maybe it was an oil breather line or something off the car, and siphoned some gas out of the diesel tank of their truck into a container, put into my truck, and then got to Bombay's. That's all cool. Think, phew, what a night that was. So we'd come out to the Mangere overbridge there, and it's got the steel expansion joints in it, and our trailer, the one before we got now, hit one of them. Well, it didn't hit it, we're just going over it, but it was probably overloaded at the time, and it blew a leaf spring apart, and the whole rear axle came off and swung around like that, and we just heard this bang, and I looked in the mirror, and there's sparks and shit flying everywhere, and I'm thinking,
is that going over the bridge as well?
That's going over the Mangere Bridge. And there's cars either side of us, like swerving and whatnot, and I think, oh, fuck, here we go. And we kind of stopped over to the side, middle of the bridge, and the axle's back like this, and there's nothing we can do, and the trailer's got, I don't know, a couple of ton in it or something. And so we literally dragged the trailer off the bridge, off that, that does that sort of tight little off ramp there into Justin's dad's workshop. Was luckily that exit right there, and we're pulling into the drive, and just as we're pulling into the drive, the axle like flicked out from underneath the trailer, and the whole thing just turned to shit. But like I say, it was lucky we won that night.
Man.
Yeah, it would have been a terrible one if you didn't win.
Yeah, no doubt.
I ran Dana's TQ at Miani probably. Maybe it was in my last season, so it's about 3 years ago now, and we were coming home and in a similar spot as well. And you come up like after the Maramura, you wind up, and then you start going up the Bombay's.
Yeah.
And we're just about to start that climb, and then James had the same thing, and like we drove home the same night, so it's like 3:45 a.m. or something, and he's like pumping the gas, and it wouldn't get there, and we had to pull over. It's like the middle of the night, and we're like, oh, that's right, we'll ring Dana and stuff, and they can pull off and stop. And as we're ringing them, we look over at the motorway, and they just sail past straight up the motorway. So we're just standing, and I don't even know where it is. It's like Waiuku or Tuakau or something, just with nothing. Yeah, pretty much, and send them on their way. So obviously something that is this it for midgets full stop, or possibility of stuff here and there, or
no, that's it. I've got to draw a line in the sand, and I mean, obviously it's going to be tempting to jump back in, but I just got to draw a line in the sand and call it done.
And then so the focus from here will be kind of fully on the sprint car program. You mentioned that there's you're planning on kind of basing a car north and south.
So we'll with what's going on in Auckland the last couple of years, the racing's changed, the landscape's changed. So we'll plan to base a car out of Christchurch, and we'll just sort of hit their bigger shows, and we'll just see what happens in Auckland. We obviously will run the odd show at Miramiri because that's looking pretty exciting. We'll run Bay Park, and see what else is going on, really, but we'll just play it as it comes.
Okay, I mean, Zach Sokol ran, I think, close to a full season out of Cromwell and Ruapuna and stuff this year, and he did maybe like double the amount of racing that we did up here
Yeah.
this season. Yeah. Where do you think things are at the moment in terms of kind of the state of things in terms of midgets? Obviously, midgets are quite shy in terms of numbers, and it does kind of look the way of kind of cars are dropping out as well. Obviously, McHugh sold his car down to the South Island. You're jumping out of yours. It looks like Shane's selling his stuff. It's that field is kind of getting quite slim. Where are we at in your eyes, and kind of what's next in terms of like how do we kind of overcome what's going on?
It's a real hard one. I was looking at an old video from 2004 actually, and I was thinking back. I was thinking back then. Wow, like there was the international series on. There was Darren Jenkins. There was Mark Brown Dog, Caden's dad, Adam Clark.
Was that when they parachuted into the Springs?
It was around that time. Yeah.
That's awesome, eh?
There was Dave Darlin, Tony Elliott from America, Corey Cruiseman. He was actually running the Red 2 car that Brad Mosen started, and so it was the year before Brad started. And anyway, I was watching that video and I'm thinking how stacked it was, and it was hard just to make a show back then. And we had it was probably like the heydays of my era of racing, I guess. And I look at it now, and it's I don't know. It's hard to put your finger on it. Whether it's, I think a lot of it's got to do with Western Springs. I feel like Western Springs has always been the home of midget racing, and without it, it's like it doesn't have that glamour that it used to have, I guess. Everyone used to look at Western Springs as like the absolute holy grail. Even people from overseas, that's why we get like guys like Larson and Bell and Clawson want to come here and race at Western Springs. So, I mean, it's hard to put your finger on it, but it's definitely fallen away from what it was, and it's a real shame because it's a sport I've obviously grown to love, and it's sad to see it in the tapering off. But I don't think it's over. I think it's maybe just gonna take a few years maybe to turn the corner, and who knows what's going to happen with Waikaraka Park and the future Western Springs and all that jazz. But hopefully midget racing can find a new home, and then we'll see numbers come back in.
Because even sprint cars in the last season, the numbers were dipped as well from where they were if we go back even 1 or 2 seasons back. And I mean, there were nights at Western Springs where we had over 20 cars, and Bay Park also had close to over 20 cars as well running the same night. So there are a lot of cars just sitting in sheds at the moment. Is there a way that we can kind of appeal to those guys who are in that space, and how do we kind of get the cars out of the shed and get them back up?
I think, recently there's been nothing to get those guys out of the shed. And I think Mary proved it with the amount of cars they had at their practice, and the amount of people sitting on the bank was proof in the pudding, like that was like an exciting event to go to, and it was just a practice. So I think, and I don't want to talk bad on what anyone's doing with their tracks or whatever, but Mary created something exciting, and people want to go and see it. So I think that is really where it's at. There's got to be overseas drivers. There's got to be big money to attract those guys, the good guys, and it's got to be a big deal, a big event. You mentioned skydivers. I mean, how often do we see that? And that's a big deal.
Didn't you end up in the park?
Was it? I think it was Darren Jenkins.
Yeah,
and he ended up in the
Western Springs
Park. In the park next door. Yeah,
that was Darren Jenkins. I ended up on the there was a TQ race waiting to go out on the dummy grid. I ended up on the bonnet of one of them. But that's getting back to like a big deal. I mean, you don't have to be a diehard speedway fan to be entertained by skydivers, and I'm not saying we have to get skydivers back, but it's that big show, that big event, and the diehards will go regardless. They just love racing, but the people that I think need to get back to speedway is the people that may or may not go on a Saturday afternoon, and having a big deal like that would get those people there.
I think it's been really hard as well. Like even as a driver for like almost my whole midget career, there was maybe only one midget title that felt like a midget title. Like growing up, I was always like, man, like it's going to be so cool. You're racing it. It feels like the biggest event of the year and stuff. And I think Royal Puna is one of the few places that make it feel like a significant event. And like we were pacing around in the 4 wide and the sparks from the freaking ute were like coming up and landing almost in the cars, and like it felt awesome, the whole event. And then we went to other ones where it just felt like it almost felt less than a club night.
Yeah, I remember, for a long time actually, in Australia, they do a really, really cool job of hosting their events, and they have a Calcutta and they auction off the different drivers. They usually pair them up. And after we'd been to a couple of them, particularly with Brett from Seamount, he did that one, what was it? I don't even know if it was actually New Zealand title. It might have been just the Barry Butterworth Classic, I think. And they had that Calcutta night at the Pump House, I think it was. You remember that?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
And they had the auction of, they had like I've still got actually, it was a guitar for the winner. They had the big novelty check was kind of like a new thing back then. They had that, the big toolbox. They had a swapper crate of Lion Red Big Bots, because it's what Barry used to drink.
Yeah.
But that just sort of like made a real event of it, because it was a build up to the actual race. And that was Brett doing most of that, which was really cool. But that's sort of getting back to, I guess, what we're lacking these days, and just engaging the fan, not only the fans, but also engaging the drivers to want to be there.
We're in a hard spot at the moment, so it's going to be really interesting to see what the kind of next few years look like. One of the things that I've been wondering over the past few years, like since you've had a bit of success in Australia as well, and especially at Perth, like a high wing speed track, has there ever been any thought of trying to get to the States to do anything in a wing car?
It's pretty hard for me to get hired as a wing guy up there, because I'm not known for it. I'm known from driving midgets, so it is really, really hard when you're up against a lot of good guys from even from like California area. I mean, I'd love to, but it's not on my radar at this stage. To me, racing in Australia is probably more accessible, because I probably just know a few more people there, and it's just probably just a bit easier for me to get a ride, I suppose, and easier to get there and to and from, I guess. But I'd like to do some more sprint car stuff, like maybe Toowoomba and Perth and places like that. Yeah.
And even when you look at the midget stuff in Australia, it's crazy how much more the races pay as well. Like they have that 20k to win race each year, and it's like sometimes they'll have that 20k to win race and there's like 18 cars there. Like it's bizarre, just the money. I mean, with our racing, in terms of the money that you're racing for, it's just been on a steady decline for quite a number of years now as well.
Yeah, it's
and the sprint cars are even more. Like the amount of money they can race for is like up there.
Yeah. They had Perth pays 110 to win that high limit race, which is probably a bit of a start on its own.
Yeah,
but Toowoomba have that red hot summer shootout that pays $5,000 to win the prelim, then 10 I think it is to win the main event, but then it pays back real good. But at the same time, it's super hard to win.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of good cars there. Like they have big crowds, like decent crowds, but I mean, it's, I don't know, it's hard to put your finger on it, but definitely prize money anywhere other than New Zealand is a lot better. Yeah.
So it's been just over a couple of hours, so I won't hold you for too much longer. What does the next few years look like for Michael Pickens?
Obviously a lot more sprint car stuff, or just carrying on with the sprint car stuff, less midget, of course. We'll just see what happens. I mean, I'd love to see midget racing come back to where it was years ago. I always felt like it'd be neat to mentor a young guy. In fact, I sort of, in the back of my mind, I sort of want to put a young guy in my car and run him, but to me it just doesn't excite me with the current way things are. But if it gets back to where it was, then maybe run a young guy. I don't know, but definitely running more sprint car stuff for sure.
Nice, that'll be really cool. I really appreciate your time. I mean, both of us do. You're kind of in that upper echelon of guests that we've kind of dreamed of having on the podcast. So I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
Also sharing the stories that you did, and appreciate Dallas and the things that she brought through as well. It was kind of a cool touch to the podcast. So yeah, thanks for your time, man.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me along.